ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। नष्टप्रायेषु अभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवतीरुत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी। ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपकदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनिति नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभो नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna. Reading from Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. By His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. We are reading from Canto 3, Chapter 25, the Glories of Devotional Service. So now we are at the place where Devahūti is inquiring. She is praying to Kapila Muni, her own son, and very beautiful prayers. We'll just recite the last couple of verses. Text 7, we'll just recite 7, 8, 9, and then we'll come to today's verse, that is verse 10. देवहूतिरुवाच
देवहूतिरुवाच
निर्विण्णानितरां भूमन्
निर्विण्णानितराम्
सतीन्द्रियदर्शनात्
न सम्भाव्यमानेन
येन सम्भाव्यमानेन
अन्धं तमप्रभो
प्रपन्नान्धं तमप्रभो
तस्य त्वं तमसो
तस्य त्वं तमसो अन्धस्य
पारस्याद्य पारणम्
निरत्यपारगम्
चक्षुर्जन्मनामन्ते
सच्चक्षुर्जन्मनामन्ते
त्वदनुग्रहात्
लब्धं मे त्वदनुग्रहात्
आद्यो भगवान् पुंसाम्
य आद्यो भगवान् पुंसाम्
त्वयि भवान् किल
ईश्वरो वै भवान् किल
तमसान्दस्य
लोकस्य
तमसान्दस्य
सूर्य इवोदितः।
चक्षुः
चक्षुर्योदितः
We come to today's verse 10. अथ मे देव सम्मोहम् यो वर्ग्रहोऽहं ममेत्येति एतस्मिन् योजितस्त्वया. Translation.
Now be pleased, my Lord, to dispel my great delusion. Due to my feeling of false ego, I have been engaged by your Maya and have identified myself with the body and consequent bodily relations. Purport. The false ego of identifying one's body and one's self and of claiming things possessed in relationship with this body is called Maya. In Bhagavad Gita, 15th chapter, the Lord says, I am sitting in everyone's heart, and from me comes everyone's remembrance and forgetfulness. Devahūti has stated that false identification of the body with the self and attachment for possessions in relations to the body are also under the direction of the Lord. Does this mean that the Lord discriminates by engaging one in his devotional service and another in sense gratification? If that were true, it would be an incongruity on the part of the Supreme Lord, but that is not the actual fact. As soon as the living entity forgets his real constitutional position of eternal servitorship to the Lord and wants instead to enjoy himself by sense gratification, he is captured by Maya. This capture by Maya is the consciousness of false identification with the body and attachment for the possessions of the body. These are the activities of Maya, and since Maya is also an agent of the Lord, it is indirectly the action of the Lord. The Lord is merciful. If anyone wants to forget him and enjoy this material world, he gives him full facility, not directly, but through the agency of his material potency. Therefore, since the material potency is the Lord's agency, indirectly it is the Lord who gives the facility to forget him. Devahūti therefore said, "My engagement in sense gratification was also due to you. Now kindly get me free from this entanglement." By the grace of the Lord, one is allowed to enjoy this material world. But when one is disgusted with material enjoyment and is frustrated, and when one sincerely surrenders unto the lotus feet of the Lord, then the Lord is so kind that he frees one from entanglement. Krishna says, therefore, in Bhagavad Gita, first of all, surrender. And then I will take charge of you and free from all reactions of sinful activities. Sinful activities are those activities performed in forgetfulness of our relationship with the Lord. In this material world, activities for material enjoyment, which are considered to be pious, are also sinful. For example, one sometimes gives something in charity to a needy person with a view of getting back money 4 times increased. Giving with the purpose of gaining something is called charity in the mode of passion. Everything done here is done in the modes of material nature, and therefore all activities but service to the Lord are sinful. Because of sinful activities, we become attracted by the illusion of material attachment, and we think, I am this body. I think of the body as myself and bodily possessions as mine. Devahūti requested Lord Kapila to free her from the entanglement of false identification and false possession. Hare Krishna.
Yes. So now, devotee says, "Now be pleased, my Lord, and dispel my great delusion. Due to the feeling of false ego, I have been engaged by your Maya and have been identifying myself with the body and thus, consequently, the bodily relations." And who is the relation of her bodily relation in one sense? The Supreme Lord only, who is sitting. Okay. So this prayer is very similar to, Queen Kunti's prayer, where she says, "Drudam Pandushu Vrishnishu," that, my dear Lord, so please cut the ties of affection. Drudam Pandushu Vrishnishu. If you remember, first canto, 8th chapter. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes, the false ego of identification of one's body with oneself and thus claiming the proprietorship is called as Maya. So what is the Maya? Maya means when one forgets the connection with the Supreme Lord and tries to act in reference to the material world. This is how precisely the Supreme Lord defines Maya when he is when he is instructing Lord Brahma, original Chatushloki Bhagavatam, where he is describing that there is only one Supreme and there is relation to the Supreme, and anything which appears apart from the Supreme Lord is called as Maya. And here Srila Prabhupada quotes the same thing, Kṛṣṇa bhuliya. As soon as we forget Krishna, because Jiva being Tatastha energy, Jiva, then what happens is that he's enamored by the Maya, and thus he gets engaged in the Mayic activities. But here, interestingly, devotee says, "My dear Lord, me engaged in Maya is also your Leela." And Prabhupada says, somebody may ask a question, then is God partial that he is engaging somebody in Maya and somebody in. So Prabhupada says, no, that is not the sense. So what the idea is, when the living entity forgets the Supreme Lord, he is captured by Maya. And because Maya is also agent of the Supreme Lord, and Maya is working on the instruction of the Supreme Lord, and therefore, in another way, activities of Maya are also considered as activities of the Supreme Lord. Just like, the soldiers are fighting on the India-Pakistan border. And, the high command may give the instruction and somebody may be fighting there, but actually the instruction is coming from the top. So therefore, the war is in one way is fought by Delhi, although the war may be fought at Amritsar, Ludhiana, or the Jammu Kashmir front. Similarly, the Maya may be capturing, but the Maya is instructed by the Supreme Lord. So indirectly, devotee says, my dear Lord, this is also one of your activity. So why the Lord allows somebody to be captured by Maya? And that is the answer which is given by Lord in Bhagavad Gita. Sarvasya chaham riti sannivishto mattah smritir jnanam apohanam cha. From me comes remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. So when a living entity wants to separately enjoy from the Supreme Lord, the Lord awards that living entity forgetfulness. Why that forgetfulness? So that by that forgetfulness, one can enjoy the material world. Right? One can enjoy the material world. And therefore, devotee says, my dear Lord, because you are controlling this smritir jnanam and apohanam cha, you are in a way, by your instruction only, by your arrangement only, I am engaged in service of Maya. Further, Srila Prabhupada says, by the grace of the Lord, one is allowed to enjoy the material world. But when one is done with the material world, then one will sincerely surrender unto the lotus feet of Kṛṣṇa. The cleverity or the chaturta of a devotee is that devotee doesn't wait to become frustrated or disgusted with material world. Right? So whenever he has the full control with his body, full control with his resources, he surrenders to Supreme Lord by the activities of Yukta Vairagya or devotional service. And Srila Prabhupada quotes the final instruction of Bhagavad Gita, Sarva Dharman Parityajya Mam Ekam Sharanam Vraja Aham Tvam Sarva Papibhyo. So Prabhupada says, in a way, what is the sin? Sinful activities are those activities which are performed in forgetfulness with our relationship with the Supreme Lord. So, we are talking about now very, very subtler levels of activities. The grossly sinful activities are breaking the four regulative principles, eating meat, this and that. Then there are subtle sinful activities. Then there are subtlest. So the subtlest sinful activity is that activity which is performed in forgetfulness of the Supreme Lord. So why? Because whenever we are not aware of the Lord and our relationship with the Lord, invariably we are going to act in the modes of material nature. Prabhupada gives example of charity in the mode of passion. Similarly, there is determination in the mode of ignorance, so on and so forth. So, and when we are acting in the modes of material nature, invariably those modes are going to act, and that is going to ensure the perpetuation of the material body. Right? And therefore, vis-a-vis, a devotee may be engaged in the gravest of the activity. Just like, we see Arjuna engaged in deadly war. And still, because he is performing that war in relationship with the Supreme Lord, under instruction of the Supreme Lord, he is not bound by the modes of material nature. See, this is the difference between, the subtlest part of sinful activity and devotional service. One may be engaged in a very horrifying activity under the instruction of the Lord. In this case, we see Arjuna, but still he is beyond the modes of material nature. And somebody may be engaged in a very pious activity, but that pious activity, if it is under forgetfulness of the Supreme Lord, it will avert, it will again create a karma bandhana. And therefore, they says, my dear Lord, please remove all the false identification and the sense of false possessions. So this is what the beautiful prayer of devotees. Text 11, again a beautiful prayer. We will just recite this one. Tam tvagataham sharanam sharanyam.
Tantvagataham sharanam sharanyam.
Samvridya samsarataro kutharam.
Samvriddha
Samvridya
samsarataram
samsarataro
dharam.
kutaram.
Sayaham prakrite purushasya.
Jignāsayam
Satyaham
prakrite
prakrite
purushasya
purushasya
Saddharma vidam varishtam.
namami
namami
saddharma vidam
Sadharma
satyam.
vidam
varishtam.
varishtam.
Yeah, translation.
Devahūti continued. I have taken shelter of your lotus feet because you are the only person of whom to take shelter. You are the axe which can cut the tree of material existence. I therefore offer my obeisances unto you, who are the greatest of all transcendentalists, and I inquire from you as to the relationship between man and woman and between spirit and matter. Purport. Sankhya philosophy, as is well known, deals with Prakriti and Purusha. Purusha is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or anyone who imitates the Supreme Personality of Godhead as an enjoyer, and Prakriti means nature. In this material world, material nature is being exploited by the Purusha or the living entities. The intricacies in the material world of the relationship of the Prakriti and Purusha, or the enjoyed and the enjoyer, is called samsara or material entanglement. Devahūti wanted to cut the tree of material entanglement, and she found the suitable weapon in Kapila Muni. The tree of material existence is explained in the 15th chapter of Bhagavad Gita as an Ashwatha tree whose root is upwards and whose branches are downwards. It is recommended there that one has to cut the root of this material existential tree with the axe of detachment. What is the attachment? The attachment involves Prakriti and Purusha. The living entities are trying to lord it over material nature. Since the conditioned soul takes material nature to be the object of his enjoyment and he takes the position of the enjoyer, he is therefore called Purusha. Devahūti questioned Kapil Muni, for she knew that only he could cut her attachment to this material world. The living entities in the guises of men and women are trying to enjoy the material energy. Therefore, in one sense, everyone is Purusha because Purusha means enjoyer and Prakriti means enjoyed. In this material world, both the so-called man and so-called woman are imitating the real Purusha. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is actually the enjoyer in the transcendental sense, whereas all others are Prakriti. The living entities are considered Prakriti. In Bhagavad Gita, matter is analyzed as apara or inferior nature, whereas beyond this inferior nature, there is another superior nature, the living entities. Living entities are also Prakriti or enjoyed, but under the spell of Maya, the living entities are falsely trying to take the position of enjoyers. That is the cause of sansara bandha or conditioned life. Devavati wanted to get out of conditioned life and place herself in full surrender. The Lord is Sharanya, which means the only worthy personality to whom one can fully surrender because he is full of all offenses. If anyone actually wants relief, the best course is to surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Lord is also described here as Saddharma Vidam Varishtham. This indicates that of all transcendental occupations, the best occupation is eternal loving service unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Dharma is sometimes translated as religion, but that is not exactly the meaning. Dharma actually means that which one cannot give up, that which is inseparable from oneself. The warmth of fire is inseparable from fire. Therefore, warmth is called the dharma or nature of fire. Similarly, sadharma means eternal occupation. That eternal occupation is an engagement in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. The supreme purpose, the purpose of Kapiladeva's Sankhya philosophy is to propagate pure, uncontaminated devotional service. And therefore, he is addressed here as the most important personality amongst those who know the transcendental occupation of the living entity.
Now, devotee prays. I have taken shelter of your lotus feet, for you are the only person worth taking shelter of. Sharanam Sharanyam. So this phrase will always be coming in Bhagavatam. Sharanam Sharanyam, Gato Mukundam Parihritya Kartam. So he is worthy taking shelter of. That is the first reason. Second, she says, you are the axe which uncut the tree of the material existence. then you are the greatest of all transcendentalists, and you can describe me the relationship between Purusha and Prakriti, or spirit and matter. So, for these four reasons, my Lord, I am taking shelter at your lotus feet. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains that the Sankhya philosophy means it's a discussion between Prakriti and Purusha. So, here there is a beautiful definition of what is Prakriti, what is Purusha, and what is Samsara. So, Purusha, generally, we think that Purusha means male. So, when the Bhagavad Gita talks about the Purusha, Purusha means one who is enjoyer. So, who is the Purusha then? So, Purusha, the Supreme Lord is the Purusha because he is the ultimate enjoyer, right? And then one who imitates the Supreme Lord or tries to enjoy the material nature is also called as Purusha. So, it is not that Purusha means only male. The enjoyer is called as Purusha, and the enjoyed is called as Prakriti. And the interactions between the Prakriti, the and Purusha is called as Samsara, which is Davanala, Lidaloka, right? So then this is the definition of Purusha, Prakriti, and Samsara. Prabhupada says that this Samsara is highly binding, and therefore one gets involved in the Samsara. It is very difficult to come out. Sometimes we have such a knot that it's very difficult to open that knot. Best course of action is to cut the rope. Similarly, here, one has to cut the samsara, and the suitable weapon is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Srila Prabhupada quotes Bhagavad Gita, 15th chapter, how this material world expands as a samsara. Urdhva moola madashakam. Mulani anusantitani karma dhini manushya loke. Sarupamase yatopalapyate nanto nachadir nacha sampratishta ashvatthamenam suvirudha moolam asanga shastrena dridena chitva. Chitva means to cut off. One has to cut off asanga shastrena. And Prabhupada says, by attachment to the Supreme Lord, by developing devotional service, one can actually cut off this knot of Prakriti and Purusha, which is called as samsara. Further, Srila Prabhupada explains, Devahūti is questioning Kapila Muni that only he could cut the knot. So, why he could cut the knot? Because he is Saddharma Vidam Varishtham. He is the highest personality. So, Prabhupada further explains about the Prakriti, type of the Prakriti. So, when we say Prakriti, there are two types of Prakriti. One is called as the matter or the Bhautik Prakriti. Another is spirit, which is Adhyatmic Prakriti. So, Bhagavad Gita very clearly explains about this Prakriti. Right. Bhumi rapo analo vayu kham mano buddhirevacha ahankara itiyam me binna prakritir ashtadha. So this is my ashtadha prakriti, which is of the material nature. And then aparameya sitam stvanyam prakritim vidhime param jiva bhutam mahabaho. So then there is another superior prakriti which is called as jiva prakriti. So this is the difference between spirit and matter. So the Sankhya is going to talk about these four things. Right, precisely. What is Purusha? What is Prakriti? What is spirit? What is matter? And relationship between Purusha and Prakriti, that is called as samsara. And how to get rid of the samsara, which is the process of devotional service. So this is the Sankhya philosophy in a nutshell. Further, Prabhupada says the Lord is the Sharanya, the worthy person who is the only worthy person to whom one can fully surrender oneself. Why? Because he's full of six opulences. Right. Yesterday, somebody wrote a mail to me saying that, sir, can you give me some job? Now, you can give somebody job when you have that openings. Correct. So, material world, everybody will come across some inebriety, but in the spiritual world, or when the Supreme Lord, because he's full of all the six opulences, he is worthy taking shelter of. He can award shelter to anyone and everyone. So this is, the Lord is also called as Saddharma Vidam Varishtham, that he is the personality who knows the Saddharma, Dharma very well. Prabhupada says, what is Dharma? Loosely, the Dharma is translated as religion, but Dharma is not just religion. Dharayati iti Dharma. So what is, just like the itihas doesn't mean history. There is a very beautiful movie which has come up very recently, last 2-3 days. It is called as The History of Itihasa. Okay, is in the theaters. It's a very good movie, barring some of the movie aspect of it. But it gives the it gives the history of Itihasa. What is the history of Itihasa? Anyway, coming back to, so these are very loose translations. Itihasa means history, dharma means religion. No, dharma doesn't mean religion. Dharma means dharayati iti dharma. So what is dharayati? What is dharayati means? What is the characteristic of that entity? Like the sugar is sweet. You cannot have pungent sugar. No, it will be some different substance. Sugar means it has to be sweet. You cannot have sweet chili. No, chili means hot. Sweet chili can be a preparation, but the chili doesn't mean, chili has to be hot. Water has to be liquid. Dharayati iti dharma. Similarly, the living entity also has a dharma. And what is that dharma? Savaipum samparo dharmo yato bhakti radhokshaje ahaituki apratihata yayatma suprasidati. So when Sankhya philosophy is going to discuss about dharma, Sankhya is also going to discuss about devotional service. Without devotional service, Sankhya is incomplete. And this is the purpose of Kapiladev's Sankhya philosophy, to propagate the most important activity, that is the process of devotional service. And prior to devotional service, understanding of everything this Prakriti, Purusha, spirit, matter, Paraprakriti, Aparaprakriti, and Samsara, and the ways of getting rid of Samsara, that is devotional service. Text 12. Now we come to the third section of this chapter, between text 12 to 18, where Kapila Muni is going to describe Adhyatmika Yoga. Text 12. Maitreya uvacha iti swamatura nirivadya ipsitam nishamya pumsam apavarga vardhanam dhiyabhinandyatmavatam satam gatir babasha ishit smita shobhitanah. Translation.
Maitreya said, after hearing of his mother's uncontaminated desire for transcendental realization, the Lord questions, the Lord thanked her within himself for her questions, and thus, his face smiling, he explained the path of the transcendentalists who are interested in self-realization. Purport. Devahūti has surrendered her confession of material entanglement and her desire to gain release. Her questions to Lord Kapila are very interesting for parents who are actually trying to get liberation from material entanglement and attain the perfectional stage of human life. Unless one is interested in understanding his spiritual life or his constitutional position, and unless he also feels inconvenience in material existence, his human form of life is spoiled. One who does not care for these transcendental necessities of life and simply engages like an animal in eating, sleeping, fearing, and mating has spoiled his life. Lord Kapila was very much satisfied by his mother's questions because the answers stimulate one's desire for liberation from the conditional life of material existence. Such questions are called apavarga vardhanam. Those who have actual spiritual interest are called sat, or devotees. Satam prasanga. Sat means that which eternally exists, and asat means that which is not eternal. Unless one is situated on the spiritual platform, he is not sat, he is asat. The asat stands on a platform which will not exist. But anyone who stands on the spiritual platform will exist eternally. As spirit soul, everyone exists eternally, but Asat has accepted the material world as his shelter, and therefore he is full of anxiety. Asat Grahan, the incompatible situation of the spirit soul, who has the false idea of enjoying matter, is the cause of the soul's being Asat. Actually, the spirit soul is not Asat. As soon as one is conscious of this fact and takes to Krishna consciousness, he becomes Sat. Satam Gati, the path of eternal, is very interesting to persons who are after liberation, and his lordship Kapila began to speak about that path.
Maitreya Uvacha. Maitreya said, after hearing his mother's uncontaminated desire for transcendental realization, Lord thanked her from within, Abhinandya. So he thanked her mother from within, and Smita Shobhitanana. And thus his face smiling, he explained the path of the transcendentalists who are interested in self-realization. So Lord is sitting leisurely, and suddenly the mother comes, and she is just putting one after another query, saying that, my dear son, I have just spoiled my life. Please enlighten me. And from within, the Supreme Lord, who is the son of Devahūti, he thanked her. Thank you, mother. Such a nice, wonderful query. And outside, his face is smiling. Smita Shobhitanana, his smile decorating the face of the Supreme Lord. Why the Lord is smiling? The Lord is smiling because suddenly the mother has become disciple. You have ever seen that mother becoming disciple? Mother means, generally the mother will be instructing, uh, disciplining, shouting. Okay. But suddenly the mother has become disciple and saying that, my dear beta, please instruct me in the path of devotional service. And therefore, here, the Supreme Lord is smiling. Because who all becomes disciples of the Lord? Suddenly a friend become a disciple. So, he's saying that Shishyasteham Shadimam Dvam Prapannam. Sudden out of a blue, inside the battle, a battle is about to begin, and Arjuna is surrendering, who is a friend. Here, mother is surrendering, and there also Lord is smiling. Here also Lord is smiling. Right. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada says, Devahūti has surrendered her confession of material entanglement. And she wants to come out of this material entanglement. And she is interested in understanding the reality of spiritual life. Prabhupada says, unless one feels inconvenience of the material existence and interested in genuine spiritual life, one will not have hope of coming to Saddharma Pracha. Sometimes people are simply so satisfied with their material life and the material pursuits that they don't think only that there is any inconvenience in the material world. Sometimes this may come because of too much of Aishwarya, and sometimes it may come because of uh, too much of material mindset, the conception of ahar nidra ityadi, that one is completely blind to the spiritual realization. And such a life, Prabhupada says, is literally a spoiled life, because the human life is given only and only for one purpose. Rest all is corollary. That one purpose is, now at least inquire about the absolute truth. Athato Brahma Jigyasa. Otherwise, one will be simply engaged in the animalistic activities of eating, sleeping, and so on and so forth. Classic example is somebody who is like a multi-billionaire and just moving around, the Earth planet and trying to increase the population by his own, the hedonistic way. So this is not the goal of the human form of life. Very much satisfied with his mother's questions, because the answer stimulates one's desire for liberation from the conditioned life. And this is all called as apavarga vardhanam. These answers are apavarga vardhanam. Apavarga means the path of apavarga, the path of liberation, and vardhanam, which is expanding. Sat Prucha is called as Sat Prucha. Such inquiry is called as Sat Prucha because it is actually inquiring about the absolute truth. Sat is eternal, and living entity is eternal, and the process of living entities engagement is also eternal. And thus, when there is inquiry about devotional service, it is called as Satpricha. That is the eternal inquiry about the eternal devotional service. Otherwise, Prabhupada says the life is full of anxiety. Always one anxiety after another. You do anything, there is anxiety. You have too much of a money, there is anxiety. You have a less of a money, there is anxiety. You go for shopping, there is anxiety. You go for, just do anything in the material world, it will ultimately lead to anxiety. And therefore, one has to come to the platform of Sadgrahan. The one has to come to the platform of eternal platform of devotional service. And this is called as Satam Gatim. So we will conclude here and continue tomorrow. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaura
Jai.
Bhakta Vrinda ki jai.
Jai. Thank you, Prabhupada.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Krishna will no problem, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Prabhupada. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you,
Thank
Prabhupada.
you,
Thank you,
Guru.
Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, one question, Prabhuji.
Yes.
Prabhuji, like you said that, na, like somebody maybe too much satisfied with material world because of Ashwar. Prabhuji, what if somebody is like satisfied too much because of too much dependent upon Krishna?
No, there is nothing called as full dependent. When one
Okay.
is satisfied dependence on Krishna, that is the highest key. But the trick here is that it has become a at the time when that age of one has to work. What happens is sometimes the Maya presents itself as sometimes the laziness or a kind of subtle laziness may be presented as surrender to the Supreme, and there is always a chance that mistake. I so that is not the paradigm. So what it means is dependence on Krishna is one has to act very rigorously in the service of the Lord, right? Hare Krishna. Thank you.